Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sabbath services here at Tomorrow's Church of God. For our first song, if everybody would please turn to page number 83 and stand. We are going to sing, if I can get there myself, Unless the Lord Shall Build the House. Page number 83. Great start. Now, if everybody will turn over to page number 25, we're going to sing Glorious Things of Thee Are Spoken, after which we'll get Mr. Robert King to come do our opening prayer. Page number 25. Thank you. And now for our opening prayer today, Mr. Robert King.
Our wonderful, blessed Heavenly Father, we pray that you would hear the words that we sing today to you and accept these songs to you. And we pray that we would, as we study your word, we would learn from your word and live out your word and take it into our hearts and dwell on it always. We pray that you would be with those that are sick and infirm. Pray for those that are traveling and not able to be here today and not able to attend the Sabbath. Dear Heavenly Father, please watch over and keep each and every one of us. Pray for this congregation and all that we live for you. This we pray in your blessed Son's holy name. So let it be.
Thank you, Robert. All right, a couple of announcements today. It says, good morning and welcome to tomorrow's Church of God, not yesterday's Church of God. And welcome to all of our online viewers. You can download today's scriptures, actually just right from your Bible, because we're doing Bible studies now. And the Bible study we're going to be covering is Numbers 18 and 19. Let's see here. However you're watching us online, we are now available on Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, and Roku, so you got multiple choices. If you're looking for us on Roku, we are under The Sabbath Channel. However you're watching us, if you'd please take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button. Also share with your friends. This will help get the word out and it'll help increase our online presence. Also, if you are watching online, if you wouldn't mind going and to the comment section and letting us know how you're watching, so we know where to focus our attentions on our marketing and everything else, so we can serve everybody the most. That would be very helpful, and that way we can kind of see where we're getting everybody's attention from. If you'd like one of our 2024 calendars or booklets, simply send your address and an email to tomorrowtcog@gmail.com, and you can download a copy of that calendar from our website. If you just go to thetcog.com, select a 2024 calendar PDF, select literature, then calendars, and now my weekly side note here. Now the dates in this calendar are subject to change based on the new moon physical observations. So far we've been right on track. You can ask your Bible study questions today from that same website. Go to thetcog.com, select the TCOG streaming, and you can ask your questions in the comment section. Ron, I think we'll hopefully be manning that for us, and we can hopefully get those in time to address anything you've got. Another announcement that's not on here is, so Monday is Atonement. I'm not sure what we're going to do on that one yet. I'm thinking we'll probably at least have a message to play. Maybe we can play last year's message or the year before. I was thinking about it this week. I was like, coming and doing 2 Bible studies on the Day of Atonement would be pretty tough, especially with the way that I've had to drink a lot of water anyway. So that would be a little tough. And if everybody's okay with that, we'll probably just do a presentation on there from one of our previous atonements that we can rehash and go over to make sure we've got everything from that one. All right. There we go. Oh, thanks. I'm sorry. Now on your screen, it's not on my notes. If it's not on my notes, I don't see it. Now on your screen, you'll see the prayer list for this week. If you would please keep everybody on this list in your prayers, along with their family members. I know that they would greatly appreciate it, and it would be very beneficial for everybody. Yes, ma'am.
There is one new prayer. Crossed my mind, Joe.
Okay.
It's a 9-year-old Ella. She has just been diagnosed with leukemia.
Leukemia. Okay. So I'm going to try to. A friend of Melinda's. Okay. There's a new person that we weren't able to get on the prayer list. Can you tell me her name one more time? Briella, 9-year-old, who's just diagnosed with leukemia. If you would please keep her in your prayers along with her family. I know that they would greatly appreciate it also. All right. And we'll try to get that on the list for next week, so it'll be up there. And again, for our Bible study today, we're going to be covering Numbers 18 and 19. I was about to say let's do 19 first, but let's do 18 first. Trying to change it up a little bit, right? And I'll be reading out of the Names of God Bible, and we'll start in verse 1, but mine actually has a little subtitle. It says, The Duties of the Levite and Priest. Everybody ready? All right, it says, Yahweh said to Aaron, You, your sons, and your family will be responsible for any sins against the holy place. And your sons will also be responsible for any sins you commit when you work as priests. Bring the other Levites from your ancestors' tribe to join you and help you and your sons serve in front of the tent of the words of my promise. They will work for you, doing whatever work is necessary for the whole tent, but they must not come near the altar or furnishings in the holy place, or they will die. And you will die too. They will join you and do whatever work is necessary for the tent of meeting, including the maintenance work for the tent, but no one else may come near you. Verse 5. You must be in charge of you must be in charge of the work done at the holy place and at the altar. Then I won't show my anger against the Israelites again. I have chosen the other Levites from among the Israelites to help you. They are a gift given to Yahweh to do whatever work is necessary at the tent of meeting. And only you and your sons may do the work of priests, everything done at the altar and under the canopy. This is my gift to you. You may serve me as priest. Anyone else who comes near the holy place to do this work must die. Verse number 8, Yahweh said to Aaron, I am putting you in charge of the contributions given to me. I am giving you and your descendants all the holy gifts from the Israelites as your share. These contributions will always be yours. That part of the most holy offerings, which is not burned, belongs to you. It may come from a grain offering, an offering for sin, or a guilt offering. Whatever is brought to me as a most holy offering will belong to you and your sons. Eat it in a most holy place. Any male may eat it. You must consider it holy. The contributions that come as gifts taken from the offerings presented by the Israelites are also yours. I'm giving these to you, your sons, and your daughters. They will always be yours. Anyone in your household who is clean may eat them. I'm also giving you the first of the produce they give Yahweh, the best of all the olive oil, and the best of the new wine and the fresh grain, the first of all produce harvest in their land that they will bring to Yahweh is yours. Anyone in your household who is clean may eat it. Anything in Israel that is claimed by the Lord is yours. Every firstborn male, human or animal that is brought to Yahweh is yours. But you must buy back every firstborn son and every firstborn male of any unclean animal. Then when they are 1 month old, you must buy them back at the fixed price of 2 ounces of silver, using the standard weight of the holy place. But you must never buy back a firstborn ox, sheep, or goat. They are holy. Throw the blood from these animals against the altar and burn the fat as an offering by fire, a soothing aroma to Yahweh. But the meat is yours, like the breast and the right thigh that are presented. I am giving you, your sons and your daughters, all the holy contribution. The Israelites bring to Yahweh. These contributions will always be yours. It is an everlasting promise of salt in Yahweh's presence for you and your descendants. Verse 20 says, Yahweh said to Aaron, you will have no land or property of your own, as the other Israelites will have. I am your possession and your property among the Israelites. I am giving the Levites 1/10 of everything, every Israelite's income. This is in return for the work they do at the tent of meeting. The other Israelites must never again come near the tent of meeting. Otherwise, they'll suffer the consequences of their sin and die. Only the Levites will do the work at the tent of meeting. They will be responsible for their own sins. This is a permanent law for future generations. They will own no property, as the other Israelites will. Instead, they will give the Levites what the Israelites contribute to Yahweh, 1/10 of the Israelites' income. This is why I said about them, they will own no property as the other Israelites do. Verse 25. Yahweh said to Moses, speak to the Levites and say to them, you will take 1/10 of the Israelites' income, which I'm giving you as your property. When you do, you must contribute 1/10 of that income as your contribution to Yahweh. Your contribution will be considered to be grain from the threshing floor or juice from the winepress. So you, too, will contribute 1/10 of your income to Yahweh out of all that you receive from the Israelites' income. You will give Yahweh's contribution to the priest Aaron. Out of all the gifts you receive, you must contribute the best and holiest parts to Yahweh. Also tell them, when you contribute the best part, your contribution will be considered to be produce from the threshing floor or winepress, so you and your households may eat it anywhere, because it's the wages you receive for your work at the tent of meeting. When you contribute the best part, you won't suffer the consequences of any sin. You won't be dishonoring the holy offerings given by the Israelites, and you won't die. All right. I knew it. Go ahead. What you got?
On 3 where it says,
On 3.
they must not come near the altar or furnishings, or they will die, and you will die too. So Aaron would die. It says somebody would, what if, Aaron had to be taking care of it all the time?
So, excuse me. This is actually, I had to go through this a couple of times, and then I'm like, oh, I think it's starting to make sense. So, verses 8 through 19, well, it says it's talking to Aaron. And he said, it's you, your sons, and your family. So, that's who's being considered in that part for verse 3, right? It says, no one can come in there. So, Aaron and his sons are the priests that work inside the tent. And
Nobody else.
besides them, no other Levites can go and work inside the tent now. Remember, we've kind of been going through this where the different Levite families were in charge of different areas.
Yeah.
And they're going to be in charge of a lot, or not in charge, they're going to be the manual labor for the priests. But they can no longer go inside the tent and do any work. It's just Aaron and his sons that can go in there and do that. So they have to be from a specific line of the Levites to be able to go in there. So what they're saying is they don't want they're talking about the Levites. None of the other families now can actually go inside the tent, and it's your duty to keep them out, or they'll die and you'll die. So whoever doesn't get out, if it's Aaron or sons or whoever else will die if they don't do that.
So in other words, if somebody gave permission, like, yeah, come on in and help me.
Yeah, I need you to come help move the stable.
Yeah.
And then
That person
they're-
that gave permission will die, and the person.
Exactly. This is now we've got another separation here. So we've got the outer court and everything, but now we've got another distinguishing property here of the inside. Yes, ma'am.
The other families that were responsible for doing certain things,
Uh-huh.
taking care of certain items within the tent, they're part of the ones that were killed. Like
Right.
that were swallowed up by the earth.
Well, but their families are still there, I believe. Not all of them died because there's it's not Korah. What is the Levite No, I'm talking about the Levite family that lived on the south, and they were in charge of taking all the. Whenever they moved, they're in charge of taking all the items inside the tent and transporting them. Kohath? I think that's what it is. Kohath. Yeah, Kohath. So they're still going to have to go in there, but when the tent is set up, they're no longer able to go in there and do any kind of help or work inside the tent. Does that help? Did I answer your question? Partially. Okay, which part didn't I get?
So the ones that were swallowed up,
Right.
killed
Korah.
by God,
Yeah.
they were part of the families that had.
Yeah, they were part. I know Korah was part of the Kohath, so he actually had a very important role, or he was part of a very important Levite family. He wanted more on there, and so he died, and his family died, but not all the Kohaths died. If that makes sense, because they're just they're just a member of the Kohath family, and they started the rebellion. The people who started the rebellion, they died along with their families, but the Kohath tribe itself did not die. Does that make sense? Let me get. I'm gonna get with you in a second. Let me get to Linda.
Okay, when they were breaking down the tent, could it be that Aaron and his sons would bring the items out of the holy to people that were going to transport it instead of them going in to get them?
Anything's possible on there, right? So the question is, so everybody heard it is, so when they were breaking down the tent to move to different locations, could it be that Aaron and his sons brought those items out to the Kohath? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, it could have been. Yes, sir.
It determines whether God's presence is in that tent or not.
Yeah. Okay.
And then if his presence is in there, you can't go in there.
Right.
You know, but if it's not, then they can go in there and retrieve what the other.
Well, like whenever God's presence leaves and he says, "Hey, follow me," and yeah, then they've got to go in. Right, but when he's there, or when he's stationed at the cloud stationary, they can't go in. Yeah, they can't go in the tent.
He's there.
Yeah. So again, to both y'all's points, I don't know if it's the Aaron and his sons brought them out and then they transported them, or if they went in there. And it doesn't say that I know of on there. But yes, once God's presence is gone, I would think that they could go in and get the items, because there's a lot of work that they got to do. The ark itself had to be carried by several men on there and couldn't touch the ground. So, yes.
Yeah, okay, I lost my train of thought.
Ah.
No, but what was it? Well, on that state, the high priest the only one to go in and go into the Holy of Holies.
The Holy of Holies, yes.
To wrap things up right there, and then in the holy part of it, his sons would be able to.
Right, because you had
wrap
the
those.
lampstand and the showbread and the other altar, the water. Can't remember what it was precisely.
The incense,
Incense, yeah.
showbread, and all that. But well, I got to
You got it?
think about this other one.
Well, let me get Charlotte real quick and come right back to you.
Judith mentioned, concerned about.
Oh, that was Korah. Korah's. how
Oh
they
yeah,
died?
okay, Korah. Korah had he died, but his son did not die in that earthquake. So,
Yeah, any of the people who went and rebelled against Aaron, Moses, and Aaron
yeah,
died.
exactly. Quite a few people, lost their life on
Yep.
in that earthquake ordeal. But luckily, further down into the future, Korah does become, one of the high priests. Later, we'll probably read it later down.
Korah?
Sons.
Oh, okay, I was going to say, Korah didn't become high priest, he died. but one of his sons.
It's sons.
Yeah.
You
That didn't rebel against Moses and Aaron.
Kind of pull away from it.
Let me get Charlotte real quick. Go ahead, Charlotte.
In 11, where it says,
11.
Yes, and it says, anyone in your household who is clean may eat them. So define what clean would be in this. I mean, I kind of understand it, but I want to.
Right, so when we were going through Leviticus, we were going through all these different offerings that they would do to become clean. And so then you'd be in the state of cleanliness, and that was for the whole camp. Now, if you touched a dead body, you would become unclean, which we're going to find out in chapter 19. So if you had touched a dead body, you would not be able to partake in that meal. You'd have to wait the 7 days till you were clean again, and then you could partake in those meals.
if they became unclean, they'd have to, they couldn't eat these meals, so I got it. It's in my head.
You got it? Yes, ma'am.
If they touched a dead body, it was 7 days?
7 days. Yeah.
That I do remember.
We're going to find out about that in the next chapter we're going to go through. Just going to talk about the process of how to cleanse somebody from touching a dead body. But yeah, 7 days on there. Robert?
Yeah, 21, it says.
21.
I am giving the Levites 1/10 of every Israelite's income. This is in return for the work that they do at the tent of meeting. So, for some reason, I had never remembered that part. I'd always remembered that you give a tenth to the widows and orphans.
Right.
Is what I, from another chapter, but I didn't remember this.
Yeah, so this is your first tithe, basically, is what I've always known it as first tithe, and it goes to the Levites. And so, one of the distinguishing things I want to point out in here is, so when you get down to verse 8, it talks about contributions for Levites and priests. So from verse 8 down to verse 19, that's talking about Aaron and his sons specifically. And then when you get to 20 on down, that's the other Levites. So when you were to give a tenth, you weren't giving your tenth income to Aaron and his sons. You were giving it to the Levites on there. And then the Levites would take 1/10 of that and give it to Aaron and his sons. Yes, sir.
So, I guess where I'm getting into this is this going to be done on a regular, consistent basis? Kind of like we give a weekly tithe or whatever. Or is it only on each holy day celebration?
So what they would do, excuse me, since they were kind of an agrarian or society, is you would have these harvests, right? And so and those harvests just happen to coincide with the different feast times, right? The spring, summer, and fall feast. And so during that time frame, when you would get your bountiful crop, right, you would give a tenth of that to the Levites on there. And so that would sustain them. Wasn't every week, I got paid from 7-Eleven, let me give you some money. It was when I got my harvest in, or when and we're going to find out, when you would have a big herd and they would have animals, they would run them, and then they would get the tenth of everyone that ran under the rod would go to the Levites.
Because all the other Israelites, they had their farms, their harvests, their fields, and whatever. So they were constantly being able to retrieve something from that, whether selling off a calf or whatever, and getting some kind of income and supplies.
Right.
Whereas this time, you're giving a big mass contribution, plus the other
little things throughout the whole season. Yeah.
For different feast days.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right, got it.
Good question. What else, Johnny?
Yeah, now we have here, the most holy offering, and there's a most holy offering and a general offering.
Mm-hmm.
Pertaining to the most holy offering, that was, given to God, but God is now giving it to all the males, the high priest and the priest.
Yeah, just of Aaron and his sons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Aaron and sons only. Okay, and then the other offering, the general offering, are given to to the Levites' sons and daughters. Only the Levites' sons and the daughter can eat whatever.
Again, that was just for Aaron and his son. I mean, Aaron and their family,
Well,
right?
Here on 11.
11.
There
Yep.
where it says, your sons and your daughters,
Yep.
they're to eat this.
Yeah, no, but I guess what I'm saying is, so 8 through 10, you've got the most holy offerings.
Mm-hmm.
And the most holy offerings is only allowed to be eaten by Aaron and his sons.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
Now, if it's not a most holy offering, still Aaron, his sons, and his daughters, so basically his families were able to eat it, but not the other Levite tribes. Just Aaron and his family on there.
Yeah, okay. And now, what kind of offering was that? I mean, was it the shoulder and the breast that
So
was
in the
after?
so in here it points out the shoulder and the breast, but you've got there were several different types of offering, right? You had the sin offering, you had the peace offering, the fellowship offering, a whole bunch of different offerings on there. And I don't know specifically what would have been the most holy offering. I think of course, the firstborn, right, would have been a most holy offering that only they would have been able to have. But I don't know the different specifics on I think there was 7 different types of offerings that we went through, and so not all of those apply to this most holy. They were considered in the other offerings down here.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So if the Levites didn't have property, where did they live?
That's a great question. So they had a place set up for them around the tent, right? So remember, they're nomadic roamers, and so this is before they got there. You'd had the temple, and then had an area around the temple that they lived in, right? But when you get into the Promised Land, we'll find out there was different cities set up for refuge, and so Levites would live in these different cities on there that were set up for refuge. And they could also, people were giving them property that they would get. They just didn't have an inheritance on it. I think after the 50 years after the Jubilee, it would go back to the original family who had given it to them on there.
That they never did.
That they never did?
The Jubilee.
Yeah. Yeah, not in the wilderness they did, but when they went to the Promised Land in Jerusalem, they were there for, they had Jubilees in the Promised Land.
Did they? In the Promised Land?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure on that. Ron, anybody else want to correct me?
What's that?
When they went into the Promised Land, they were able to celebrate the Jubilees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But did
I don't
they
know
actually-
I don't know how long they were in the Promised Land before they were taken captive. I don't know that time frame.
See, that's what I thought was part of the reason for them being taken into captivity, is because of the fact that they refused.
They didn't celebrate. Now they did have the now I'm gonna try about. They didn't celebrate they had land Sabbaths and the Jubilees, and therefore they were taken into captivity. But yeah, there was still the point in time that they were supposed to give back the land on there. Yeah, so great point on there. Yeah. What are the comments, questions? Yes, sir.
I gotta think, I'm not mistaken, I read somewhere to where in the Bible, where this Levite, there in the Promised Land, they could purchase land,
Yeah.
to live in. But there where the tabernacle was at, they wasn't able to. They're part of the priesthood. So they.
There it is. Well, it says in here that they were given a tenth of the money, so that went to the Levites. So they had some wealth that was being built up, and they were able to go and purchase. But what my earlier point was, at the 50 years, the Jubilee, I think even if you purchased it, you had to return it back to the family that had it before, right? So like the different areas, which we'll get into later, where Manasseh was on the east side of the Jordan River. That was their land, and they would buy, sell, and trade. But every 50 years, it was supposed to go back to the family of Manasseh.
Yeah.
On there.
Well, that's the way God set it.
That's the way He got set it up. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yes, ma'am.
Do you think they could have negotiated to keep it?
What do you mean?
Well, they have to give it back, but to NASA, but maybe NASA doesn't need it, and they.
Well, so basically, it was more like a rental on there. You would pay for the produce that it would provide, and when they do that now, they call it what? Sharecroppers. Sharecroppers. They don't own the land, but they get to work it and farm it. They just have to give a little bit back to the actual person who owns it.
Well, I'm talking about after the 50 years.
After the 50 years, well, they can definitely negotiate. Hey, well, we want to go ahead and keep this, and or again, it's not technically they weren't able to keep it or it to become theirs, but they
A new contract.
a new contract to work the land exactly on there.
Israelites are real good about working around things.
Exactly.
You're not saying that they were Jewish.
Linda, what did you say? I'm sorry.
I said they could continue, I forgot my.
Continue to work the land.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have
Some agreement to
there's
continue after the Jubilee's over.
Yeah. There was the property that's behind us has been in a family for I don't know how long, but I know that there was a farmer that worked it for at least 50 years, and he would just every year they'd sign a new contract, and he keep working the land and just give him basically royalties for being able to work the land on there. Yes, sir.
My grandmother and grandfather on my mother's side, when they first got married, the very first place they lived was on the Golson side of the Brazos River, and they farmed land as sharecroppers, and they did that for just like a year or two. And my grandmother said, "No, we're not going to do this. Where we own nothing, and we're just basically working as slaves."
It's,
for this
it goes on today. Somebody will come in and build a big apartment complex, and then you're basically just renting the space, and you can sign up for another year's lease on there, but you never technically own that property that you're using. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
It says on 19,
19.
it says it's an everlasting promise of salt.
Yes.
Yahweh's presence. Well, what does that mean?
So there's several different covenants. You got the blood covenant, you have a salt covenant, and when I was driving, I go, man, I should have looked at that more because I know Lydia's going to ask me on that. But there's a specific trait meaning behind a salt covenant, and I'd be, if I told you, I'd probably get it incorrect because I don't know 100% on there. Ron, do you happen to know the differences in the blood and the salt covenants that they would make?
Yeah, I do.
Would you like to share with the salt covenant?
Well, it's salt covenant in a lot of respects is a lot like a blood covenant.
Right.
There are some differences, but salt is viewed as a substitute for blood sometimes.
Right.
And you actually had to put salt on every sacrifice that was made to God.
Yeah.
And salt is well, there's a lot of things, like if you would share a meal with somebody and they would offer you salt, well, that you were technically signing a pact with them, a brotherhood.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And if you look at the characteristics of salt, it's let's look at blood, right? So blood, life, God's life is in the blood. So that contract is a life contract, right? A life or death contract, I should say. A salt covenant is like a preservative. It preserves food.
It means forever.
It means forever. You use it for seasoning to enhance. So if we just look at the traits of salt on there and how it's not a. It wasn't like a blood covenant that they would die on that if they didn't get that, but it's an enhancement to their life, a preservative for them on there. And again, that's just me kind of talking. So,
Well, some of the other attributes I use that, like in a home, they'll sprinkle it on windowsills and doors and different things of that nature, and to prevent evil spirits from coming in.
yeah, I know this. What it's
Salt on your shoulder.
Yeah.
There's a lot of folklore and stuff
behind salt itself. But I think as far as because it talks about several times the Bible talks about salt, and if you lose its flavor and it's no good, it's worthless, right? But he makes these covenants, and you actually have to have salt in your life, otherwise you wouldn't be able to retain fluid, and you would die. Right, Julie knows when you go into the hospital and you need fluid, they give you saline, which is salt water, on there. So there's a lot of symbolism around salt and how we need it in our life, and how it again preserves, and all these different attributes of salts. And we should do a study on salt itself. The characteristics of salt, yeah, exactly.
The problem is today's food has too much salt.
Yeah.
Everything has salt in it.
And different kinds of salt, right?
Yeah.
I've done a couple of 3 different messages.
Yeah. Yeah, no one can get one of those played again. Yes.
Yeah, another type of usage for salt is, you can, since it's kind of scarce, and people use it to purchase,
To
buy,
barter with, yeah.
to barter with.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah.
That's where the word salary comes from.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Stole your thunder.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
Like you're getting paid your
Yeah.
salary.
And your salt, your days of labor, you get it salt. And again, you would use it for salt and to preserve food and everything else that you would need. So very, very valuable.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
In medieval times, salt was used as part of a dowry. If that particular family had salt mines or something like that, that's how precious it was. Because they used salt to
For everything.
preserve their food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what there's also a common saying, he's not worth the salt.
Yep.
Yeah. He's not worth the salary or the payment that you're giving him on there. And Johnny, did I let you finish or did I cut you off on that? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. What other comments and questions you got?
Salt is what we say.
It loses its savor, yeah, absolutely. It loses its natural abilities and it's worthless. You just throw it out. A couple of just quick notes on here. Again, I kind of touched on it a little bit. Verses 8 through 9 is specifically for Aaron, his sons, and their families, right? And so if you just kind of read through here, you think it's for all the Levites, but it's actually not. It's just for Aaron and his sons and their families. And then when we get to verses 20 through 24, that is the other Levite families and what they're going to get and how they're going to use these tithes. So, they're not getting an inheritance of land like these other families, Reuben and Ephraim and Manasseh, everybody else. They're getting a tithe from everybody. And then they also have to give a tenth of that tithe over to Aaron and his sons on there. And so you would think they're kind of getting a better deal, right? Because the Levites have 11 tribes given to them, and then Aaron and his family have another, I think it's 9 families that are given to them on there. So, actually, no, I have to take it back. I think it's only 4. Three other tribes of Levites that were given to them on there because they were situated around the holy tent.
Well,
go
mainly
ahead.
I guess the Levites they were placed around that tabernacle
Right.
for protection.
Does it say on there? That one may not say it. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
But anyway, no. What I was going to talk about was about the heaving offering and the wave offering, which mentions here. When they talk about the heaving offering, it's kind of to lift up, and the wave offering is more like what the wave does. It moves back and forth.
Right.
And to what it represents, the wave offering kind of signifies the resurrected, the body of Christ. And the heave offering, it signifies the ascended Christ.
Right.
As you understand it. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
a special purpose, for different.
absolutely,
offerings,
and that's
so-
why when you go through the Passover season and you have the wave sheaf offering, which absolutely 100% is a foreshadowing or whatever of the Messiah on there. Yeah, great comments. Anything else? All right, we will wrap up chapter 18 then. If you've got any other comments or didn't get it in, oops, you'll have to give it to me next time. So now we'll go ahead and cover chapters 19. And again, this one's a little bit shorter, but very good, and I hope it's going to bring some questions out. Let's see, in verse 1, actually mine says, the little subtitle says, water that makes Israel clean after someone dies. And this is what we were talking about a while ago. I think it was Julie, or somebody, Charlotte, was it you that asked about how you become clean or unclean? I can't remember. This is how you'll get cleaned up. So in verse 1, it says, Yahweh said to Moses and Aaron, this is what Yahweh's teaching have commanded. Tell the Israelites to bring you a red cow that is perfect, with no defects. Also, it must never have worn a yoke. Give it to the priest Eleazar. It must be taken outside the camp and slaughtered in his presence. The priest Eleazar will take some of the blood with his finger and sprinkle it 7 times toward the front of the tent of meeting. Then the entire cow, the skin, meat, blood, and excrement, will be burned while he watches. The priest will take some cedar wood, a hyssop sprig, and some red yarn and throw them into the burning cow. The priest must then wash his clothes and his body. After that, he may go into the camp, but he will be unclean until the evening. The person who burned the calf must also wash his clothes and his body. He too will be unclean until the evening. Verse 9, a man who is clean will collect the ashes from the cow and put them in a clean place outside the camp, then will be kept by the community of Israel and used in the water that makes uncleanness. The cow is an offering for sin. The person who collected the ashes from the cow must also wash his clothes. He will be unclean until the evening. This will be a permanent law for the Israelites and for the foreigners who live with them. Whoever touches the dead body of any human being will be unclean for 7 days. The unclean person must use this water on the 3rd day and the 7th day to take away his sins. Then he will be clean. But if he doesn't use this water on the 3rd day and the 7th day, he will not be clean. Whoever touches the dead body of a human being and doesn't use this water to take away his sins makes Yahweh's tent unclean. That person must be excluded from Israel because the water that takes away uncleanness was sprinkled on him. He is unclean. His uncleanness stays with him. These are your instructions for a person who dies in a tent. Everyone who goes into the tent and everyone who is in the tent will be unclean for 7 days. Every container without a lid fastened on it is unclean. Whoever is outdoors and touches someone who was killed or has died naturally, or anyone who touches a human bone or a grave will be unclean for 7 days. This is what you must do for people who become unclean from touching a dead body. Put some of the ashes from the red cow that was burned as an offering for sin into a container. Then pour fresh water on them. A person who is clean will take a sprig of hyssop, dip it in water, dip it in the water, and sprinkle the tent, all the furnishings, and all the people who were in the tent with the dead body. He must also sprinkle any person who has touched a human bone or a grave, and any person who has touched someone who has been killed or has died naturally. A person who is clean will sprinkle these types of unclean people on the 3rd day and the 7th day. On the 7th day, they are clean. On the 7th day, the clean person will finish taking away their sins. Then they must wash their clothes and bodies, and in the evening they will be clean. But if the person who becomes unclean doesn't have his sin taken away, that person must be excluded from the assembly. He has made the holy place of Yahweh unclean. The water to take away uncleanness wasn't sprinkled on him. He is unclean. This will be a permanent law for them. Whoever sprinkles the water to take away uncleanness, if I can get that word right, uncleanness must wash his clothes, and whoever touches this water will be unclean until evening. Anything that is unclean, anything that an unclean person touches becomes unclean, and the person who touches it will be unclean until evening. Whew. So stay away from unclean because it just keeps going. Yes, ma'am.
So,
Oh, did I not finish? Mine only goes to 22. Yeah. You got 25? All right, let me go to 25 then. All right, yeah, so mine only goes to 22. That's odd. What is this one? All right, so let's just keep on going then. All right, I stopped at 22. What's weird about this is it goes from 22 to 25.
23's missing.
Yeah, 23 and 24 are both missing.
Sometimes that happens in the Bible.
Yeah, that's odd. So if you've got your Bibles handy, take a look, because my version, I was reading from the Names of God Bible, stopped at 22. Now that doesn't mean it didn't pick up in chapter 20 coming up, because I've seen that happen several times. But this version goes from 22 to 25. And I'm not sure what version this is on there. Is this, it doesn't say if it's King James or what. But let me just go ahead and I'll go ahead and read here. Verse 25 says, Yahweh said to Moses, speak to the Levites and say to them, you will take 1/10 of the Israelites' income, which I am giving you as your property. When you do, you must contribute 1/10 of that income as your contribution to Yahweh. Your contribution, you know what this is?
Oh, yeah.
That's the other side of 18.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
That's 25 and 18. So never mind. We are right. So when they make a copy of this to print, cut and paste, and left 25, 26, 27, and on down from chapter 18. Well, you had me worried there for a minute. I was like, wait a minute. All right. So now with 22 verses done, what kind of comments or questions you got? Yes, sir.
You know, a lot of the things that God, he knows us because he literally created us out of nothing. You know, every cell, every fiber of our bodies. And so a lot of the laws that he has set up lifestyle rules or for our health. So my question about this whole, the burning of the red cow and the ashes and the water and the hyssop and
And the red
does
string.
that have any known health actuality to it? Or is it just a procedure he wants us to do? Or is there a health protocol in there?
So it's a great question. And my answer is going to be, I'm going to get a two-part answer. My first part is, I don't know, he doesn't tell us. Part two is Joe's answer. And I think anything that he puts in here, he does for a reason, to your very point. We know that ashes are very absorbent. It's another way to clean. I don't know if you ever had silt on something and you get ashes and water and it cleans up fantastically. So I think it is a health law in there. But what about the hyssop and the cedar wood and the red string? Herbs, hyssop is a herb, cedar wood is a herb. I don't know about the red string. I was thinking about Jacob and his brother when I read that part, and maybe that's just a little, hey, we're gonna throw this in there. Exactly, but it doesn't specifically say. But when it talks about somebody died in a tent, being a former EMS on there, they're not always noticed the first day or two. Right, and so if you've got a dead body inside of a tent, you've got a lot of bacteria and bugs and everything else that can infiltrate this tent, and so they're trying to clean up the entire tent. That's why any pot that's uncovered is unclean, and it's a whole process. And I think, one second, Ron, I think there's a lot of his laws that we do. I think eating unleavened bread for 7 days during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, I think that is a health law that's been put in place to us to you get people that have overgrowth of yeast, and so you at least go 7 days, and it helps your body to recover on there. So I think everything he does in the Bible has a spiritual and a physical remedy for us, but he doesn't tell us precisely on there, hey, this is why I want you to do that on there. Hopefully that answers your question. Ron, you got something to add to that?
Yeah, there also, in those times in ancient Israel and Egypt and that part of the country, when somebody died, they put them in a tomb until they decayed completely, and then they moved their bones into an ossuary.
Right.
It was about a 2 foot by 2 foot stone container that they would put in another tomb along with all the other relatives and stuff like that. So you had to basically pick them up out of the tomb and put them in that ossuary where they would stay permanently.
Right.
So I think that's kind of what he's talking about here too, to where if you're one who handles that you're going to be unclean.
Yeah. Well, we have several instances of this in the Bible. Was it Abraham that they moved his body? It was Isaac. Moved Isaac. Jacob. They moved Jacob. They also took Joseph's bones with them when they left Egypt. So this is, to your point, this is not an uncommon practice back in the day that they would, the body would basically disintegrate, turns back to the earth, and then what you'd have left are these bones. And even over time, the bones will deteriorate. But it wasn't uncommon for these bones to be around and then to take it to wherever they were going to go. Again, Joseph, they were there for 400 years. I don't know how long he lived into that 400 years, but let's say he lived 100. You still had 300 years that his bones were still there that they were able to take with them. So
I think history says 90.
he lived at 90 on there. And was that 90 years into this 430, or was that 90 total? Yeah. So what was it? I think he was 15 or 20, somewhere in that age frame when he was taken. So you're talking 85 years.
Almost 400 years.
Yeah, over 325 years. Yes, ma'am. I'll get you 1 second, ma'am. Sorry.
Number 12.
Number 12.
Yeah, the third day and the seventh day.
Uh-huh.
Do you know what the significance is?
I do.
Good.
Yeah. So God said do it on the third day and seventh day, and that's why it's significant. No, well, I don't know what the significance of the third day is. I know the significance of the seventh day, that's completion on there, and I don't know what the significance of 3 is. Johnny's raising his hand like he knows, so go ahead.
Kind of thing. Well, I mean, it's a purpose that God, done this, wait until the third day, because this person might come alive on the second or first day. So, I mean,
Well,
you have
that's-
to- you're actually dead after that third day.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. But this is for the people who touch them on there.
But
So-
even though, I mean, if
Yeah.
if you touch them, you got to wait until that third day.
Well,
You know,
yeah, no,
so-
it's a good point on there.
Yeah, and then that's when if he doesn't come alive, and then you just sprinkle him the whole place
Right.
down.
Well, and so this is, I mean, I know what you're talking about on there, and that's a great idea. This specifically is talking about the people who have to go in and remove his body out of the tent or find him in the wilderness and move him, so they become unclean when they touch a dead body. Yes, sir.
Well, it's just thought, but the third day may be a reflection or to the resurrection of Christ.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so that would go along with what Johnny's saying on there, with the third day being the reflection on the Messiah. But it's a great idea. I know that specifically here it's talking about sprinkling the water on the people who go in there, and I think that gives you 3 days to see if they come down with anything, right? And then another purification of 4 days just to make sure, because when we were in Leviticus, they were going through, when you had a sore or whatever, there was a certain amount of time that you'd have to go through on there too. Yes,
It
sir.
also says it's to take away sins.
Yeah, and the sin is touching the dead body. So we're not to touch anything, a dead carcass on there. Yes, ma'am.
If it's a sin to touch a dead body, then
Why do we do it? Yeah.
I mean, you have to bury him.
You do. Well, and there's a remedy for it, right? Not all sin has the death penalty on there, but he doesn't want you to touch it, right? You hire somebody to come get it for you, right? But if you've got to touch a dead body, he wants you to be cleansed, and because you remember, this whole process was so that the tribe of Israel could be clean and to be in God's presence on there, and so this was to get you clean so you could come back into the congregation, because if you're unclean, you can't get back inside the group area on there of the campsite, right? You had to be outside on there. And go ahead, Ron. I'll say that. Does that answer your question? Kind of make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, my question is since the temple's been destroyed in 70 AD and they haven't had a red heifer up until recently here, has the whole nation of Israel been unclean for that time?
According to this right here, yes,
Probably,
absolutely.
yeah.
Now, you bring up an interesting point on there, too, because nobody caught this, and I wanted to make sure and bring it up. Do you remember last week I was talking about you got the holy and holy of holies, but then there's a tent outside the camp? So, and that's where Aaron and Moses would talk to God quite a bit. It was outside the camp in this tent. And so if you look on here, it says you have to take this cow outside the camp. Now, what's outside the camp? If the camp is clean, what's on the outside? Unclean. But it says in a clean place. They put the ashes in a clean place. So the only clean place, and this is just me, again, this is me talking. If you've got a meeting outside of the camp where God would talk to Moses and Aaron, or Moses directly and Aaron and his sister, and Mary indirectly, wherever God's at, it's going to be clean. And so these ashes, I would think, would be near that tent of meeting on there. And what's funny, or not funny, but very interesting, only a clean person could go get the ashes. Once they got the ashes, they became unclean until the evening. So there's a whole lot of deeper stuff in here that we tend to just kind of gloss over. Yes, ma'am.
So why are the ashes unclean?
No, the ashes are clean.
The person's
But what? No. Okay, so the clean person has to go get the ashes.
Yes.
But once they touch the ashes, they're unclean.
They're unclean.
Okay. When you burn something to ashes, there's no DNA left. Or there's no disease left.
So what's very interesting on here is, so also with this red heifer cow, whatever, if you notice what it says to burn, and I've got it somewhere, did anybody find where it says what you got to burn with it. There it is in verse 5. You burn the entire cow. You burn the skin, the meat, the blood, and the excrement. Everything. Do you know in the other offerings that you do or sacrifices, you bleed your animal out and then sprinkle the blood and then pour it out. With this one, you burn everything up. And so, as your point, you said a great point. If you burn it all up, the DNA is gone, right? But
The disease would be burned.
well, the disease would be done. But in this particular thing, since the life is in the blood, you're burning everything up together. So the blood, the life that's in the blood is still burned up with it. That's what my opinion, or my personal thought, which makes these ashes clean and holy, is that it's burned up with the blood in it, which is different from all the other sacrifices and offerings on there. Yes, sir.
Also, the other sacrifices were for God. This is for cleansing Israel.
Great point on there too. So this sacrifice is to cleanse Israel directly by sprinkling it on them, but the other sacrifices are for God. Let me get Julie real quick. I get her
I'm
back
sorry,
to something.
I guess what I'm not understanding
Uh-huh.
is if it takes a clean person to touch the ashes,
Yep.
and the ashes are used for cleansing, then why is the person unclean after he
I
touches
can
them?
answer that.
You didn't answer it?
Yeah.
All right, tell me.
Because they're going out, that's out in the unclean area, so they have to walk to it to get there and walk back, so that would make them unclean.
Well, that's a great
That's a
great
good
thought
point.
on there. But the ashes are in a clean place.
Well,
Outside
they're
the camp.
in a
They're
clean
taken
place,
to a
but
clean
you have to
You
walk.
have to walk from. That makes great sense. So you've got to walk from the clean entire camp,
Yeah.
into uncleanly to the tent of meeting, which is clean, and then walk back. But the ashes are still clean.
Right, the ashes are.
Yeah. So yes, ma'am. I'll get you 1 second, Ron.
Okay, so does that mean that anytime anybody goes outside the camp, they're unclean?
That there's a process that you have to go through on there. Oh, okay. Here we go.
I don't think so, because the refuse, it's the human refuse and stuff is outside the camp. That's where they went to do their business and stuff. So
Yeah,
that would
dump the
mean
trash.
just basically every Israelite would be unclean, at least,
Wait. So say that one more time. I'm sorry.
The refuse and stuff,
Right.
the human refuse and stuff was kept out, went
The
outside the
latrine.
camp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you had to carry your paddle on your side so you go dig a hole.
Yeah.
And then bury it. But so if we notice also, the priest Eleazar, was it Eleazar? Thank you. I was like, I know I'm not saying that right. Eleazar, when he went out there and did this, he became unclean. So even Eleazar did what he's supposed to do, because he had to go watch this. He didn't actually kill it. Another clean person had to kill the animal, and then Eleazar had to watch it and then add in the hyssop, the cedar wood, and the red string. Yeah, and then he was unclean and had to wash not only his clothes but his body, and then became clean in the evening. Yeah. Sorry, 1 second.
That going outside the camp may have made them unclean, because just going outside, because they had to hunt and
Right.
forage and different
But-
things like that, and it just part of that ceremony. You go out.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
see
but again, this wasn't an unclean for 7 days. This is an unclean until the evening.
You're right.
You were just unclean until the evening, so you couldn't enter back into the camp until basically the start of a new day on there, because they would, dark start of the new day. So you would start the new day, become clean again, and you were able to enter back into the area. So I've got a couple of questions out here. They've been trying to get their hands in. Let me get them real quick. Lydia, what you got?
Yeah, all this uncleanness, washing clothes, washing your body. There was a lot of water being used, wasn't there?
There's a lot of water being used, yep.
It was like, how much water did they have around to clean?
Well, you
wash
had
every
to
day?
be able to sustain, I'm going to be a conservative, 2.5 million people. So you'd have to have a lot of water, which may be one of the, and plus all their livestock and animals and everything. So, which that may be one of the reasons why they had to travel so much. They'd eat up all the resources in an area and then come back and have
That's
to go
a lot
find
of water.
a new one. That's
That's
a lot of water.
being used
Yeah.
clean, wash
Think
yourself,
about
wash your clothes.
the rock. I know everybody's seen the picture of the rock that was split and the erosion that's coming out of there. I mean, you had to have, because you will die faster from lack of water than food.
Yes.
Right, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
So water is, they call it living water. Living water is moving water that doesn't collect the bacteria or stays cleaner than a stagnant pond where things can grow. So water is life, blood is life. There's a lot of analogies that are used throughout the Bible that, again, I think we just can read over a lot. At least I do. I'm not a very good reader, so I just read right over it and don't pay attention. So I'm glad we're going through these Bible studies to spend a little bit more time on what the little pieces that are hidden within the sentences are. So I know that didn't answer your question, but I don't know how much water
Yeah, that
was
was
being
wrong.
used.
About 5 gallons per person.
5 gallons per person a day. That's a lot.
Especially
Not
in
to
the
mention
desert.
the animals.
Yeah, not to mention the animals. So we just had a baby calf last week, and this mama is drinking probably 30 gallons of water a day now. It's absolutely crazy how
It
much
takes
water.
a lot of water to produce.
Yeah, so, think about not only just a regular Joe Blow out here growing crops, but moms who are breastfeeding and everything else. It takes a lot of water, and unfortunately I don't have an answer for exactly how much. Robert, I think I saw your hand come up.
Many different stories would talk about how armies would literally drink the rivers dry. I mean, it's not just the humans, but all the animals
Yeah.
and all the oxen and all the horses and everything that they brought with them would literally drink the rivers dry. Now, we're not talking about like the Mississippi, because in the desert you don't have a lot of Mississippis, but you have like maybe a Brazos even would be a big river.
But
in
think
the
about
Middle East.
supporting, how many people are in Waco?
Huh?
How many people live in Waco?
Yeah, 100-something thousand.
100-something thousand.
And-
You're talking
and we're
20
talking-
times that.
We're talking like 3 to 4 million
Yeah.
or more, plus all the livestock.
Yeah.
Yes, they could probably drink.
You would
even
need
the
something like the
Brazos.
Brazos to be able to
It
sustain.
could turn it into a mud puddle.
Yeah. Which
Really?
the Brazos is pretty much already muddy. Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, Charlotte? Do you need some?
Wouldn't God, isn't he supposed to help them find the water or
Oh,
help them
absolutely.
get the water?
Yeah, no. So remember, they would whenever it was time to pack up and leave, the cloud would go somewhere, and they would have to follow behind to get to wherever the cloud was. So
Understand why God didn't just make the water to give them instead of making them travel.
well, part of it too. Remember, this is a punishment because they didn't trust in God.
Yes, it was.
So this 40 years was for the 40 days that they spent and the scouts spent looking at how lush and fantastic this place was, and they go, "Oh, I don't think we can do
But
it."
there's giants in the land.
Yeah, they were wringing their hands, and God said, "Okay, I'm going to punish you for 40 years, and nobody over the age of 20 is going to go into the promised land because you still don't trust me
Right.
on here." So again, he could definitely just make a spring like the rock and provide the water for them. But again, this is a punishment that they're going to have to go through on there. Let me get Johnny real quick, and I'll get right back to you. Because Johnny had his hand, he's been trying to get in there.
Now, coming to it to where God is in what He created, and to make everything fall into His plan. I mean, and one of the things that I came across to understand, okay, all right, there's different type of bloods, and what He created. There's a purple blood, there's a yellow blood, there's a blue blood, and of course our red blood.
Right.
You
You're
know,
talking about for different animals?
snails,
Oh, okay.
animals,
Yeah.
whatever.
I was,
God
at first I
created.
was like, where are you going with that?
Now, see, I mean, it's something He created.
Yeah.
But then, He's going to use man and animal, okay? And of course, there's brown cows, white cows, and He's going to use the red cow
Right.
instead. So what does it represent? It represent Christ, and He's, of course, He burnt the red heifer to ashes,
Right.
meaning that man's gonna return to dust. I mean, to the ground.
The ashes to ashes.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
But and Christ died. So I mean, it's all spiritual what God is doing here, trying to make everything spiritual again.
Absolutely.
So by sacrifice or offering, a wave offering, heave offering, all this going on,
No,
So-
absolutely. And actually, I think it's more than that. I think it's more than just spiritual. I think it's physical, too. I think it has a dual meaning on there.
Duality.
And then you said it absolutely 100% correct.
Mm-hmm.
He created all this, and he's working, he's taking the clay and working us into his master plan by doing all this. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it is. So
Linda, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
I was going to say on the water, if they had trusted him and gone into the promised land, then they would have had all the water.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Well, then they would have had they would have been given the land that they were divided up, right? Because they had the different sections that they divided up for them for everybody, and they would have gotten those lands with the water and everything else, and been
Milk and honey.
flowing with milk and honey, and they would have spread out,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Right now, they are a dense congregation of tents that is moving around, just devouring all the gobbling resources.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
and one thing is talking about water, H2O. You know, what does it represent? You know, spiritually that is. And as we read in Revelation chapter 22, verse 17, there, and it says, water can. Oh, wait a minute. Let me just read it. And the Spirit and the bride say, this is the Spirit and the bride. Well, Christ and the bride say, come, and let him who hears say, come, and let him who thirsts come. Whoever desires, let him take the water of life freely.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, water has a lot of connections there.
Absolutely. You know, even talking about the Messiah, we talked about, you know, life is in the blood, life is in water. You can't have life without water. Life is in the blood. You know, when the Messiah was pierced, what came out? Separated blood and water on there. So yeah, no, there's a huge significance on this, on there. Back to 19 real fast. So any kind of comments on the heifer or how the cleanliness and uncleanliness works? I mean, this is like a you're it kind of game, right? If you're unclean and you touch somebody that's clean, they become unclean, and it's just like it keeps on going on. So to Robert's earlier point, this is a health statute, in my opinion, that helps to prevent disease from spreading. And just like this game where it says you touch somebody else, they become unclean. That's how diseases get spread. You know, we saw through COVID. You know, you come in contact and you get it, and then you spread it, and it keeps going. If we were to do what the Bible said and isolate, and for the 7 days until they get over this, they would stop the spread of all these diseases on there. Lydia, I'm sorry, you had a
Oh,
comment?
I'm sorry. The person who's unclean, does he have to be outside the camp or just unclean until there?
Well, so it depends, right? So if like Eleazar went out, he was unclean until the evening. And when I read it,
Outside the
he
camp?
had to stay outside the camp. It's because you can't come into the camp unless you're clean.
But what would they stay?
Well, it's just till evening, right?
Yeah,
so
but would you stay out, just standing outside?
Kind of out there kicking rocks. See what's going on.
There was a lot of people unclean.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it could be great. Maybe some entrepreneur went out there and set up shop and said, "Hey, leave a quarter for everything you get," right? Yeah, make some chairs to rent. Exactly. Julie, did you have anybody have a comment?
You can rent a chair.
Yeah, rent a chair for it. Yeah. That's why there's no woods out there now, because everybody's making chairs.
And have set up like water shops and like popsicle stands
Exactly.
or whatever, I mean,
Yeah, that's what you would see today. Yes, ma'am.
All right, so I'm just trying to think logically about this, but so everybody to take care of their business had to go outside the camp. So it's unclean.
Yep.
So is everybody outside the?
Everybody outside the camp is unclean, and you would be unclean until the evening.
So everybody had to go take care of their personal business outside the camp.
Well, so that's what Ron was saying.
They're
I'm
all
not sure if they.
standing around outside the camp.
Did it say that? Did we cover it somewhere where it said you got to go outside to take care
I
of?
believe it does somewhere. I don't
Okay.
remember
And
where.
it's. I mean, we've gone through so much. I don't remember that specifically. And if that's what it says, then that's what you'd have to go outside the camp.
It's going to be outside the camp
Everybody.
every day
Yeah.
until evening.
Well, that's why you didn't eat a whole lot.
I think on that maybe where chamber pots were invented.
Right. Exactly. That's why they're like those spot with the lid. If the lid's not on, it's unclean. Get rid of that.
Or you wait till late in the afternoon and go. You don't have
Yeah,
to
you
wait
take
very
your
long.
Yeah.
sunset, so that by the time you journey out to get rid of the business,
Yeah.
then by the time you get out there,
Yeah.
it's sunset.
If you're on a morning schedule, you were in trouble.
Yeah.
But see, that's where it confuses me, because I'm not really sure that they were unclean when they went out there and did that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it does say that they were unclean on here when they went out. So when
Well, in that particular
Yeah.
instance, but
Yeah.
that's what I was saying earlier. I think that may be a more ceremonial thing connected with that than it is with people just actually, because people had to go out and hunt.
yep,
They had to go out and gather sticks for firewood and
If
different things of that nature
yeah.
and stuff. That didn't necessarily make them unclean.
If everybody had to go outside the camp to do their business, then that means the entire camp was vacant to almost to a
Right.
point until dark.
Until
And it's
dark.
like, then the whole massive camp is
Would
coming
come back in,
inside.
yeah.
That
And they had to
almost
wash.
doesn't physically
you also
make
had to wash
sense.
before you could get back in there, right?
Yeah, and I mean, what I'm saying is that almost physically doesn't make sense.
I don't know. I wasn't there, but
You weren't there?
I'm just. I know. It looks pretty old, right? But I wasn't there. I just going off of what it says here, right? And again, we can read into a whole lot of what this is. Yes, ma'am.
So when the manna came, did that just come inside the camp, or was it
Yeah.
everywhere?
I don't
They
know.
had to go
That's a
out?
great question. I think what it said when they went outside their tent, it was on the ground everywhere.
Joe, get your way back machine.
Yeah.
We'll find out
my,
for
my
sure.
way back machine.
Let us know.
But I mean, great questions, and again, God doesn't make you or doesn't expect you to do something that's impossible, right? He's never going to punish you for doing something that's impossible to do, even if we think it is. There again, he also says, I'm going to test you, and I'm not going to give you something that you are unable to do. And we're a lot of times we're like, I can't, I give up, right? So we have our self-esteem is much lower than what God's esteem is for us, right? How they did it, I'm not positive. I just know in this specific instance that we're covering, it said that when it was to take it outside the camp into an unclean area, burn it up, and then take the ashes and put the ashes in a clean area, still outside the camp. And then after they did that, Eleazar was unclean, and when they went to go get the ashes, they were clean, got the ashes, and became unclean. Yes?
I know we know that all the sacrifices, when you look at them in one way or another, portray Christ.
Mhm.
They portray the Messiah in one way or another. Well, and I think this probably has something to do with Christ being in this world as a healing, taking away the sins of man and stuff like that. And it portrays that, and going out into the world would make you unclean.
Like you unclean. You have to come back and focus on God.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of goes along with what Johnny was saying on there.
So I think I truly believe it's more a ceremonial thing. It's specific to this ceremony of cleansing.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's a great thought. I'm just an average Joe. I know I look pretty smart, but I don't know everything. Let me get Linda real quick. I'll get right back to you.
So on the red cow, and they use the ashes with water for cleansing, sprinkling.
Uh-huh.
That's a lot of people for one cow. How often did they do this?
Well, that was fixing to be mine.
That's your next question?
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't specifically say on there when the ashes got done. And we don't know the ratio either. Would they put a teaspoon of ashes in a gallon of water, or would they put 4 cups? I don't know. Right? Is it more of a paste? I would think it'd be more liquidy, just to be able to splatter it around everywhere. But it doesn't give us a specific amount of how the concentration was made up on there. And Julie, right before, I'm gonna get Ron real quick and then get right back to you.
Well, yeah, you could be talking about a couple of thousand gallons of liquid there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you, again, a teaspoon or a fourth of a cup, you can make a lot of liquid out of that. And if somebody died inside of a tent, I don't know how big that tent is. That tent as big as this room. It would take a lot of water to clean it up, because you had to sprinkle it on everything inside the tent. The people that were inside the tent also, you had to sprinkle everything on it. So it would take a lot of water, but I just don't know what the concentration was on there. Julie?
Okay, so if you had to sprinkle water, and a person dies in a room, a little bit of water is not going to clean anything up. Okay, so that I'm getting the impression it was more ceremonial.
Yeah.
Well, so I would say to a point, but I do think that it actually did have some health benefits. There's a lot of things that we don't know, even in science, that we think we know, and then we come to find out in 20 years, it's like, oh, we were completely wrong about that. So I don't want to put any limitations on God. And again, I agree with you that it may have been more ceremonial, but I think it actually did have some kind of health benefit at the same time. And it may have been the combination of the cedar wood, because I know that they use that as like an oil that you put in the air, right? And the what was it? It was cedar wood, hyssop, and there was some red yarn on there. I don't know what maybe the red scared away the bacteria. I don't know, but it obviously did something that helped with it on there, for sure. And again, I agree. I think it was a spiritual point. I think it was a physical point. I think we don't know all the benefits of what God has told us to do. How many years did you eat clean food before you realized, oh my goodness, pigs have worms in them? I had no idea about that. And then all this stuff that he's told for thousands of years, I don't want, these are unclean, and we're like, okay, whatever. But they have, it has health benefits to eat the food that he talks about. I mean, it's one of those things that I don't know. I don't know if we know right now what benefit that had, but I think it was for some kind of health. And so I got 3 hands up. Let me get Johnny real fast, and I'll get Charlotte, and then back to Julie.
I mean, whenever you put something in water, and you kind of change the chemistry, and it's not H2O, it's something else added to it, and it'll affect the whole thing.
It's like the saline that we were talking about before that Julie used to use all the time. It's like, isn't it 0.9%? Isn't that what saline is? Is it less? 0.09. 0.09% saline in this liter of water to replenish your body. I mean, it's very minute. So talking about the concentration, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't a smoothie concentration on there.
But enough to get the job done.
Enough to get the job done, exactly.
Even if it's an act of a person by doing that, obeying.
The faith.
Or it's a faith.
Yeah. Was it to your point, was it the act of your faith doing that, or was it the physical, or a combination of both on there?
Exactly.
And so Ron's jumping in real fast as I get to show it.
Well, you stop thinking about it. Eleazar had to go out every day to do that. I mean, a lot of people got unclean in the process. That I mean, if he never would be clean.
Yeah.
So they had to make enough that could handle.
And we don't know what the size of these cows were, too. They might have been some big cows.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, there had to be a period of time there.
Like willingness.
Maybe once a month or something, he actually did this.
Yeah, it's like the healing oil that they were to make. Even if you made gallons of it, you're talking millions of people. How quickly would you go through this stuff and have to remake it all the time? All right, Charlie. Sorry, get back to you now.
That's all right. Now in the VA, they have in the rooms now they clean them. They take this machine in. It's like an X-ray kind of thing, and it cleans the room.
Is it the ultraviolet light?
Yes.
Yes,
and it cleans the room.
Yeah.
But my thought is that whatever chemical, the wood and everything makes a chemical that probably helps dilute or keep the diseases down.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking. That even if you sprinkle it, it helps.
Yeah. No, it's like
stuff.
I can't. Is it thieves? I think we use thieves. And so if somebody in the house gets sick or whatever, we start putting thieves out just to kind of go throughout the air, and then the particles you can't even see that you're inhaling helps to keep you healthy on there. In my opinion on that.
Yeah.
Julie.
Well, let's remember that all things are possible. God,
Yeah.
And God was among these people.
Yep.
So, was it more so do what I tell you to do?
Exactly, and that's what
I'm going to make it clean because you did what I told you.
Exactly, that's what I was kind of talking about with Johnny. The act of doing it shows your faith and obedience. And does that help? Because again, to your point, God, all things are possible through God. Or was it that, or was it physical? And I think it was a combination of both.
It seems like it's more combination, but the fact is that he saw you do it.
Yeah.
And so therefore, since he saw you do it, he's going to take care of the rest.
Yeah.
No matter what. Because that's his word. Like,
Exactly.
I made my word that you do this, and I'll take care of the disease or germs or whatever is involved in this, and don't worry. Because even if, like I said, even if it's a teaspoon in 50 gallons of water, don't worry.
Yeah.
You went through this process, and so I've taken care of it.
Exactly. It's like, I'll give a quick example I just thought about in my head. So if I tell my son, hey, if you mow the lawn, I'm going to take you for ice cream and whatever, right? If he mows the lawn, did that cause the ice cream to appear? No. It was what you did, I then provided the solution for it, right? If you don't mow the lawn, does the ice cream disappear? No, it's still there, right? It's just through your act of obedience, these two things got to hook up now. The cleanliness and the act just came together on there. Yeah, exactly. So, what's that? Yeah, the reward on there. And I know that you talk about the concentrations. I know too. My wife makes some kind of homemade solution. But she puts like a very little bit in a liter of water to disinfect and everything else. Like bleach, right? Aren't you supposed to use like a very little bit of bleach in a gallon of water to use for disinfectant? So maybe it's that same kind of concept.
Well, I got to thinking about Eleazar again too. Is that his family or is that him specifically? Because Eleazar is going to die eventually.
Right. Well, so, and this is where I'm confused, and maybe y'all can help me out on it. So Aaron is the high priest. Eleazar's like second in line. So why is Aaron not doing this, and why is Eleazar doing this? Basically, because God said to do it. I got that. But to your point, there's always going to be a hierarchy to the Levite role, right?
Delegation. Delegation.
Delegation, exactly. And so Aaron would pass it down to Eleazar, who would pass it down to his firstborn son, who would pass it down to his firstborn son. Now, a question that I also had on there too is, so why in the Messiah's time were the Jews running the temple? Right? Because they weren't supposed to be in there. Only the Levites, and not only the Levites, a very specific bloodline family of the Levites. Yes, sir.
No, they had a big process they had to go through before dealing with the lineage and different things like that. They had to prove their lineage when they went in. So they weren't all Jews.
Okay.
They weren't all Benjamites. They weren't all.
They had to be Levites.
They were from Levi.
They could trace their genealogy back to the Levites.
Trace their genealogy, they could not qualify to be in.
Oh, good deal. All right. Any other comments or questions? I love the short chapters. It seems like we have more interaction. Maybe that's because y'all get tired of listening to me read. But thank y'all very much for the Bible study. I think it was fantastic. Next week we'll try to do 20 and 21. I haven't read them yet, so it'll be a surprise for me too. We won't be here next week. Never mind. We're going to be at the feast next week. So the next 2 weeks we'll be gone for the feast. Thank you for it is slowly or quickly creeping up on me. So we won't be here for the next 2 weeks. I don't know if we've got anything that we can show online or whatnot, but we'll try to get that figured out for all of our online viewers. If you're, I hope everybody has a safe travels to and from the feast. I hope everybody enjoys it. And in 3 weeks, we will get caught up on 20. Let me make sure I'm doing the right chapters. 20 and 21 on there. All right. So to sing our last song today, if everybody would please turn to page number 93. We're going to sing, "Oh God, We Have Heard," after which we'll get Mr. Johnny Padilla to do our closing prayer. Page number 93.
Nations were crushed and expelled by thy hand.
Thank you. And now for our closing prayer today, Mr. Johnny Padilla.
Our Heavenly Merciful Father, come before you asking for dismissal of this service, coming before you, before your throne, Father, and also before your Son, soon to be our Redeemer, to come and get us from this way of this world. And Father, do ask a safe passage to and from our destination as we return home, and also be with those on infirmity, healing and comforting for them, especially the young ones. And also, Father, be with us throughout this week and inspire us, and these words we learn from, take it into our heart for edification. And all this we ask in your Son's name. Also, bless the food you provide manna for us, and we're asking for the blessing of the food. And may I say, remove any evil worship ingredient if it exists, Father. And in all this we ask in your Son's name. Amen.